Good afternoon. My name is Diane Varga with Family Partners of Morris and Sussex Counties, and I welcome you to this week's Lunch and Learn. Today is November 7th. Joining us today are Stefan Klenk and Ben Wilson. Stefan will be presenting on We Are People, Labels Are for Soup Cans, and There's No Holding Us Back. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's very great to be here today. Very happy to be speaking with everyone. I've been an advocate for people with different abilities for the past several years. Love speaking up and helping to bring new ideas forward. I think it's such a great idea. So I have a couple of presentations that I'm going to be doing today. And the first one is going to be about an important topic, and that is called labels. So the biggest topic that everyone talks about is labels. But the important thing to remember is that we are people and that labels are for soup cans. So what are labels specifically? Well, labels are a name or a phrase that can classify a person, place, or a thing. And that may be done in a more inaccurate or even in a restrictive manner. Labels Phrases such as labels are commonly used because they are the easiest to remember. But it's important to remember that people don't need labels, that we're people, and that labels are specifically meant for different types of products and not for us as individuals and as humans. So what do happen when people use labels to describe an individual with a different ability? A lot of times labels can cause stereotypes. That could be a mental image of a group based on what they may think about that person or having no regard to our individual differences. It may be because of past prejudices. People may have negative judgments or opinions formed about a particular group or individual without without having certain type of knowledge, or maybe not having all of the facts. It may be based on different assumptions of what they may know, or conclusions that are based off of limited knowledge of the facts. And a lot of times it could be based on discrimination, just treating people in a much less favorable way because they are either members of a particular group or they may think about that group in a particular way. And labels are formed through a lot of different ways because of that label's name, its past history. It could be because of a fear of the unknown. Past prejudices can lead to labels as well. Um, a lot of times it can be because of constant changes, and those changes may be hard to overcome for certain people or individuals. And labels can get transferred to others. Um, but it's important to remember that if you fail to know me, that may be a problem because you may not know that person, you may not know the individual for who they really are, and that those labels may be having a negative connotation. So how do we change the attitudes that are formed around labels? Well, get to know us. We want to get to know you, and we want to be active and positive members of society. Ask us to join in different community events, to be outgoing, and so that way we get to know who's around in our community and we get to live and love one another.
Stefan, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes.
Your slides aren't showing. I'm not sure if you're clicking through them or not.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Let me just make sure that everything is changing real quick.
Yep, we
Um,
see your first slide, but they haven't been going through to the next ones.
oh, they haven't. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Um, did you want me to start over by any chance? I know we're already in the middle of the presentation, but I can always go back to the.
No, it's okay. Pick it up from where you were, I would say, and just go to the click through to the slide you were on.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I apologize for that.
No worries.
Are they changing? So I'm clicking through them now. Are they changing on your end?
They're not. No, it's still the on the main first starting.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I know we're already in the middle of the recording, so and I don't know if anyone else has showed up. I don't see anything on
No.
my end.
No, no one else is here but us.
Oh, okay. I mean, I can always go back to my other computer because I don't have a way of actually physically, like, I don't have a way of knowing what you're
You
seeing on
can't
your
see.
end.
Okay. Do you want me to take over the slides if you just want to talk?
Yeah, why don't we do it that way? And
Okay.
so let me go ahead and actually stop sharing.
Okay.
I apologize for that. I didn't realize that because this is still an area that I'm trying to figure out. So, all right. So the topic we're going to talk today is about labels and a couple of important things you may want to consider when talking to an individual with a different ability. Next slide, please. So we're talking about labels and that labels are for soup cans and not for people. Labels can often be referred to uh, as a phrase or classified for a person, place, or a thing. And oftentimes that can have a negative effect on people. Basically, the idea we want to think about is that that we are people and that labels don't have soup cans. Some of the things that may happen when we use labels, it could be a stereotype. A lot of people may have a mental image about a group based on opinion without knowing, without having any regard to their individual differences or their ideas. A lot of times it could be based on prejudices, just having negative judgments about that person or an opinion of the person formed about that group without knowledge of the facts, having assumptions or different conclusions without any knowledge or having limited knowledge of the facts. And a lot of times it could be based on discrimination, treating people in a much less favorable way just because they're members of a particular group or because of who they are. Next slide, please. So labels are formed in many different ways. A lot of times it could be based on past history, just fear of the unknown. Um, Again, our past prejudices, our own judgments on people. A lot of times those changes can be really hard to overcome for a lot of people. And labels can get transferred to others and they can be hurtful. If you fail to know me as an individual, then that may be a problem for a lot of people because we want to be active members of society and we are here to learn and to be active. We want to work and live in our communities. Next slide. And if we go to the next slide, we could see how we change those attitudes. The most important thing to remember is that we want to be active members of society. So get to know us. We want to get to know the community that's around us. Ask us to be part of a community event or to go out and be involved, whether it's through work, through volunteer, any of that. Don't form opinions on us until we know each other or that we have a history of being around each other. Um, Allow us to be visible in the community so that way we are we can be around each other and that way we can be active members of society and let us work with you to change those attitudes and to be positive. If we complain a lot, it doesn't help and it doesn't help for how we feel as individuals. Next slide, please. So these are just a couple of ideas, some words that have been referred to as labels that we try not to use. We like to think of different ability as a good term to use, or using people first language, ways to communicate to people with different abilities, and having a way to respect that person in an appropriate manner. And a lot of times, if you feel in doubt about what word to use or how to describe that person, the best thing you could do is to ask. It and always have an open mind. Some people may like to say they are disabled, and in a lot of ways, that is still used in forms of, in terms of medical connotation, that word is still very much used. Um, but it's important to avoid stereotypes and to understand that the language is constantly changing. So that could be an ongoing discussion. But always feel free, if you feel in doubt, always ask and keep an open mind. Next slide, please. But in a lot of cases, the labels that are used, they can lead to bullying. And bullying can be an emotional or physical abuse to that person, which may have an intention to hurt that person. It may be targeted action upon the same person or even a group of people, and it could be a power imbalance. But the important thing to remember is that we don't like when people use labels a lot, because that could lead to negative results, and it doesn't lift us up as positive or being or having that self-confidence. And bullying can be, no matter where it is, it can be physical, it can be verbal. A lot of times it can be based socially, but there's also cyberbullying as well, and that's something that's seen a lot, and that's something that that's not positive and needs to come to an end. Next slide, please. So a couple of other things to think about when we think of different abilities and bullying. There is a lot of research that shows that people with different abilities are most likely to be bullied than people without different abilities, and that people with different abilities are most likely to experience rejection in every form. It doesn't matter where it is. It can be in social situations, it can be in the workplace, and that's really hard to take in. But I think with changing attitudes and giving people that one-on-one experience to let them know that we are out there, we want to be positive members of the community, and that we're all just like each other. We want to live lives and be part of society. Next slide. So I mentioned the workplace earlier when talking about different abilities. Um, and people with different abilities at work may not experience the same respect as their peers. We may experience verbal insults. We may experience blame if something goes wrong. In some cases, we may experience aggression towards ourselves or even hatred because of who we are. But it's important to remember that there are laws out there that protect people with different abilities. The Americans with Disabilities Act that was passed in 1990 was a tremendous shift in how people with different abilities are treated in all walks of life. And even in the state of New Jersey, which has uh, many human rights laws and different work laws, um, they have all been led to positive results. And there's still a lot of work to be done to ensure that all people, no matter what their ability, have the right to dignity and respect in all walks of life. Next slide, please. And even still, there are effects to bullying and what we experience as victims of bullying. In a lot of cases, it can lead to a lack of confidence in ourselves that may lead to things like fear. We often experience intimidation just based on our different abilities. Stress and anxiety are certainly areas that we feel a lot. And in a lot of cases, we're not accepted. There can be a lot of social isolation where we're not fit in to the mold, where we're not being accepted and not brought in to different social ideas or just being able to be ourselves. And that could also lead to a difficulty in doing things that we love, doing our work and fitting in. And sometimes it can also lead to feelings of guilt. Unfortunately, a lot of people do experience bullying still. And there are statistics out there that show that 1 in 10 people will drop out of school if they are repeatedly bullied. So it's important that we change that narrative to show people that we can be respected in all walks of life and that we're just like everyone else. We're human and we want to fit in. Next slide, please. So how do we deal with labels and bullying? It's important that we not blame ourselves when we're bullied, that we always trust in ourselves and we talk to someone else that we trust if we experience bullying in the workplace, if we experience bullying in school, that we always find friends that are willing to help us no matter what the situation, or that if you know someone that's bullied, that you help them and you connect them to the right people. If we're experiencing bullying in any walk of life, the best thing you could do is just ignore it. If you can, confront the person about it. Let them know how you're feeling or how that experience is feeling to you. But it's also important to not let our feelings control us and to hold back on any negative feelings that we may have. So if we're being bullied, tell someone that you trust. Keep a record of what's happening if you can, but don't retaliate because that doesn't help and it just leads to more negative results. But surround yourself with other people that are like-minded, that make you feel good about yourself. That could be friends, it can be family, it can be coworkers, it could be anyone in your community that you trust. Don't blame yourself and know that if you're being bullied, it's not your fault. And be proud of who you are. And always remember that we have friends around us who are there to respect us. And that's an important thing to remember, that we're here for each other. Next slide, please. This is something that I really like, that it's not disability, it's ability. And we have the ability to make positive things happen. I always like to think of some of the words that are used in society today. We think about equality, the assumption that everyone benefits from the same supports and that we all have equal treatment. And then there's equality, that everyone gets the support that they need. And then there's justice, and that's where all of the supports and accommodations are there without any um, without any barriers. And I like to think that we still have a way to go, that labels can be removed from society. I remember just a few days ago, I had heard the R word for the first time in quite a while. And it did hurt me a little bit. But I think society can change. I think we have the power to change the way we think about things, and that we as society can benefit because we want to be part of that society too. And we want to have what everyone else has. We want the ability to live lives and to go to work, to live in our own place, to get married, and to enjoy the things that everyone else has. And I think we can do that if we work together. Next slide. And this is important to remember. Same difference. No matter how you do, could this apply to you? We're all the same in many ways, but we're also different, but that's what makes us unique. And if we act with a lot of love, with hope, and with unity and respect, we can all achieve the same thing.
Thank you, Stefan.
Yes.
Good job, Stefan.
Thank you.
Now, is there another part of this also, or?
Yes, so actually there is. So the next slide would be about self-determination.
Okay.
Um, so I didn't know if you wanted me to do a separate intro for that.
Yeah, if you would like to, go right ahead.
Okay. Ben, would you like to bring up the slide?
Yep, give me 1 second.
Okay. All right, so this presentation is about self-determination, and the title of this is that there is no holding us back. Self-determination is very important for any individual with a different ability because it's the process in which we control our lives or how we want our lives to go. And this is something that's very important with any person with a different ability. We may experience community prejudices in our lives, and those prejudices can be notions or attitudes that are directed towards us, either as a group or as an individual. And those prejudices can be anything from different labels, which we have talked about earlier, to simply name calling because of who we are, or people that just treat us differently because of how we act or how we behave. Next slide. And in a lot of cases, we may be treated differently than our peers, and people may talk to us differently as though we may be invisible from them. People may talk down to us, or they could discriminate against us based on our different ability. But we want to be treated just the way that everyone else is treated, with dignity and respect. Next slide. I've talked about name calling before, and this is something that is still very much a problem today because it shows a lack of respect for ourselves and even for other people. It can lead in a lot of cases to low self-esteem. We may feel bad about ourselves. And in a lot of cases, name calling is just plain mean. And it is an effect of bullying too. Because if you say mean words about us, if you say rumors about us or gossip or even just throw insults our way, it doesn't help us and it's not productive. Next slide. So it's important to know what to do if you or someone you know is being talked down to or is being bullied. The important thing to remember is to learn to value yourself, or if someone else that you know is experiencing bullying or being talked down to know how much they're valued in society. To focus on the things that you're good at, what makes you the best individual. It could be anything from your your job to things that you like to do in your life, creative, art, music. But if you are being talked down to and if you're being bullied, the best thing you could do is to speak up and share your feelings with that person. But always remember to value yourself. And I like this quote, to ignore the people who are always talking behind your back because that's where they belong. And remember to value yourself. You're the most important person, and no one can take that away from you. Next slide. And even still, while there are many cases of being talked down to, being bullied in society, how do we change those attitudes? Remember to get to know us. We want to be active members of society, just as I said before. Ask us to be involved in the community, um, not to form opinions about us. We want to be visible. We want to be active. We want to have jobs. We want to live in our own places, we want to get married. We want to do all the things that everyone else has. We want to have the same rights. And let's work with each other to change attitudes and build positive attitudes, because that leads to more meaningful results. Next slide. And while there are people that respect us, there are sometimes those that can hold us back. People who may not respect our own values or our own opinions. People that might make choices for us without our consent. Maybe people that don't allow us to speak for ourselves or to have our own voice, or even in some cases, to find our own voice. Some people may not respect our own privacy for who we are as humans. And there are people that may do things for us rather than letting us try or being able to do things and learn from our mistakes. We want to be able to make the decisions for ourselves. We want to be allowed to speak up for ourselves and to be heard. And with just a little bit of motivation, we can do that. And we can be positive members of society and do amazing things with just a little bit of help and a little bit of a positive attitude. Next slide. So what are the results of people who may bully us or treat us differently? It may hinder our own personal instincts, or it may hinder the development of those instincts. We want to learn from our mistakes or be able to experience our own decisions, to have our own decisions. It can hinder our own personal growth. It can lead to our self-confidence being either not developed or underdeveloped. And it can lead to a fear of not trying new things or doing new things. We want to be able to believe in ourselves and be able to have new experiences or opportunities. I remember when I first tried photography, I didn't know if I would like it, but I tried it and I enjoyed it. And now I've been working 7 years as a photographer. I didn't even know if writing was something I would be able to do. And then I spoke to writers, and I enjoy it so much that I do it every single day. Whether it's journaling, whether it's speaking up, we want to be able to try new things and do something new. That's what I believe all of us can do with just a little bit of a push and being able to say, we've got this. Next slide. So how do we, all of us as individuals, deal with those that hold us back? Sometimes we can't change what other people do, their actions, what they say, what they do, but we can surround ourselves with those who support us, our friends, our family members, people in the community can support us. Let other people know what your goals are, what you want to accomplish. If you want to have a job, let someone know. Let a family member know. Let a friend know. If you want to live in your own home, let someone know. If you know someone that wants to live independently, support them. And surround yourself with other people who share those same goals, who have the same ideas and want to make those changes. We want to be part of a community. We don't want ignorance. We want respect. And we want to be valued for who we are. Next slide. even still, we may feel insecure and we may have low self-esteem. And there are still people that feel that way. They may have been raised in environments where they have felt unsupported, whether that's in their own home, in society, or elsewhere. They may have had a major setback in their lives or a tragedy. It could have been something very personal, it could have been health, or maybe there was a lack of direction that that person had or is still experiencing. But we don't want lack of direction. We want to be positive. We want to believe in ourselves and what we can accomplish. I never thought when I was in high school that I would be working a full-time job, that I would have someone in my life who would support me. And then all of a sudden, I got to work. I got to be involved in my community. And I got to experience those things. And I found even more people who were in the same path that I was, who want to live their lives, have jobs, and have friends. That's something we all want. And with just a little luck, you may get there too. You or someone you know. Next slide. So how do we fight insecurity in all walks of life? It's important to remember positive self-awareness. That not to let anything negative stand in our way. Set goals for ourselves, whether they are big goals like living independently or just small goals, everyday tasks, whether it's taking out the trash, doing the laundry, cooking, cleaning. Always record your successes. If there's someone you know that's doing something good for themselves, let that be known and give them positive reassurance. And always use the buddy system, the mentor system. Give someone that reassurance. And don't let anything stand in your way or let that person stand in your way. Because we have the ability to change attitudes and to do positive things, not just in our lives, but all over the place in society. Next slide. So I always pose this question during my presentations, that people with different abilities are dependent on others to make all of our decisions. And if you go to the next slide, you'll know that that is false. That people with different abilities aren't dependent on others to make all of our decisions. We may need help in some areas, but we want to be able to forge our own path. Sometimes we may need supports to be independent, and that's always going to be the case no matter what. But we all work in the community. We have full-time jobs, like myself, or we may have part-time jobs. In some cases, we may be in school full-time. We may be learning, whether we are in high school or in college, or maybe even out of college. Maybe we're continuing our learning. We don't want someone else making the decisions for us. We want to be able to forge that path ahead and make our own decisions. And sometimes we may need help with some things along the way. But I think if we all work together and help each other, we can do positive things. And who knows where that could lead to. Next slide. One thing that's important that we all need is etiquette. Treating people with respect and dignity. And just having everyday positive attitudes. People with different abilities may communicate in different ways. Some people may be verbal, other people may not be verbal. But we are capable of informed consent, knowing that we can change the world, we can make our own decisions, and that we can be our own guardians for ourselves. Yes, we can make our own decisions. It's very possible for us to do that with just a little bit of help and a little bit of information, things that we can learn. We can guide our own future and we can do amazing things. Next slide. When we think about etiquette and how we want to be treated, act and speak naturally around us because we want to be treated just like everyone else in a lot of ways. We want to communicate about what is happening right now in the moment. Provide choices for us. Don't make the decisions for us. That if you're going to speak about us, then talk to us. Don't talk to our assistants or our caretakers unless they have guardianship. We want to be able to make our decisions. And most importantly, if we're adults, treat us like adults. We want to be treated like everyone else and to make our own choices. Next slide. Remember, no matter what, to be patient. That sometimes we may need reinforcement about something that is said or asked. If we are unsure of something, that we ask. But most importantly, treat us as individuals. We wouldn't want to be treated any differently, and I know that's the same thing for anyone who's watching this. We all want to be treated the same way, with the same equality, with the same treatment as everyone else. And if we go to the last slide, there's a really great quote that I feel very strongly about. And it is that it is not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not. We all have the power and ability to make good things happen, to set a path for ourselves, and not to let anyone hold us back, no matter what. We have that capability, and with just a little bit of help, we will make good things happen. I thank you so much for watching.
Thank you so much, Stefan and Ben, for joining us today. Stefan, thank you so much for this important information. Truly appreciate this. I think this is a very important video to get out to people. I'd also like to thank anybody that joined us for today's Lunch and Learn. And again, thank you to our presenters, and I will open it up to questions.
Thanks for having us.
Where did I?